quiet residential street in East London. Suddenly, a black Mercedes speeds towards a teenager on a moped. Within seconds, the vehicle hits him, knocking him on the ground. Before he can react, 5 masked men jump out and brutally stab him multiple times. The victim was a 14-year-old boy, Jaden Moodie, who would later be described as the youngest gang-related murder victim in modern UK history. But how did such a young boy become entangled in this criminal world? And why was he targeted so ruthlessly? The murder of Jaden Moodie on January the 8th, 2019 was not a random act of violence. It was a calculated gang attack carried out in cold blood. His death became one of the most shocking examples of how deeply London's gang culture had infiltrated the lives of young people. This case would expose the horrifying reality of gang grooming, where vulnerable teenagers are lured into the world of money, drugs, and crime. It also forced authorities to confront the ever-growing issues of knife crime and gang warfare in the UK. So who was Jaden Moodie, and how did he become a target? And how did police bring his killers to justice? This is the story of a boy whose life was stolen far too soon. Before jumping into the fatal incident, let's figure out Jaden's personality and how he came to that far. Jaden Moodie was born in Nottingham in 2004. He was full of energy, known for his bright personality and entrepreneurial spirit. Those who knew him described him as ambitious, with dreams of starting his own business and a love for boxing and sports. His mother, Juliana Moodie, wanted to provide him with the best opportunities possible. In early 2018, Juliana moved with Jaden to Walthamstow, East London, hoping for a fresh start. But London, in particular areas like Waltham Forest, was becoming increasingly dangerous due to the rising gang violence and knife crime. For a younger teenager like Jaden, the transition was challenging. At just 13 years old, he was navigating an environment where postcodes determined alliances and danger was always present. Jaden was often seen riding his moped, a common sight for teenagers. However, in gang-controlled areas, mopeds were frequently used for drug running. Some reports suggest he may have been a courier for the Beaumont crew, though his family denies he was a gang member, insisting he was just a vulnerable teenager who got caught up with the wrong people. At the time, London's gangs were escalating. 2 of the most violent gangs, the Marley Boys and the Beaumont crew, were fighting for control over the drug territory in East London. The Marley Boys were an organised and highly structured gang known for their extreme violence. The Beaumont crew, though smaller, was still a key rival in this environment. Even loose associations could be deadly. Whether Jaden was truly involved in gang activity remains disputed. What's certain is that Marley Boys members had already marked him. His moped journeys through their territory had been closely observed. And in gang warfare's brutal logic, even loose connections to rivals can find you in danger. Later, investigators discovered Marley Boys members had been watching Jaden for days, memorizing his patterns of movements and routes. His youth and experience made him especially vulnerable, lacking the hypervigilance that older gang members develop. By targeting someone so young with connections to the Beaumont crew, they could send a powerful message throughout East London. On January the 8th, 2019, their plan moved to action. As Jaden rode through the winter darkness, armed men were already hunting him, weapons waiting, ready to cut short a life barely begun. The evening hours of January the 8th, 2019 found Jaden Moodie cruising through Bickley Road on his moped. The residential streets of Waltham Forest seemed peaceful enough, but in the shadows, predators were tracking his every move. At 6:30 p.m, the calm was shattered by the aggressive engine of a black Mercedes B-Class. 5 members of the Marley Boys gang were inside, their weapons ready, their intentions lethal. Without warning, the vehicle accelerated directly towards Jaden, striking his moped with calculated precision. Knocking him off the moped and onto the ground, he was injured and completely defenseless. In a choreographed display of violence, within seconds, 5 masked men jumped out of the vehicle. Jaden had no time to react before he was surrounded. One of the attackers, later identified as Ajub Magdalene, led the assault. Armed with a knife, he stabbed Jaden 9 times in rapid succession. The other gang members stood by, ensuring there was no chance of escape. The brutality was matched only by its efficiency, the target neutralized. The attackers retreated to their vehicle and vanished into the London night. From collision to departure, less than half a minute had passed. 30 seconds that erased the 14-year-old's entire future. Jaden was left bleeding on the cold pavement. Shocked passers-by rushed to call for help. Paramedics arrived within minutes. Their desperate efforts to revive him creating a frantic scene under the street lights. But the damage was too extensive. There, on an ordinary street, on an ordinary evening, Jaden Moodie's life was declared over. Police would later describe it as nothing short of an execution, cold, calculated, and carried out with chilling precision. Yet, in their haste, the killers had made a crucial mistake. CCTV cameras had captured everything. The quiet neighborhood transformed overnight, as a residential street was cordoned off, and a murder investigation began. Detectives immediately reviewed CCTV footage that had captured the entire attack, providing crucial leads in what police classified as a gang execution. For Jaden Moodie, the tragedy was unbearable. In tears, she told reporters, "My son had so much potential. He had his whole life ahead of him, and now it's been stolen." The Metropolitan Police's Elite Homicide and Major Crime Command descended on Bickley Road, their experienced eyes already seeing through the chaos to the calculated nature of this attack. The police launched a murder investigation immediately after Jaden Moodie was pronounced dead. Officers from the Metropolitan Police's Homicide and Major Crime Command took charge of the case, treating it as a targeted gang attack. By 6:40 p.m, the crime scene on Bickley Road, Waltham Forest, was sealed off. Officers began searching for witnesses and CCTV footage to track the attackers' movements before and after the murder. The breakthrough came quickly. CCTV cameras had captured the whole attack in clear detail, showing the black Mercedes B-Class ramming into Jaden before 5 men jumped out and attacked him. The footage confirmed that this was not a random attack, but a planned execution. Detectives focused on tracking the Mercedes, which was stolen on the 5th of January 2019, 3 days before the attack. It was later found abandoned in the Carlisle Road area, about a mile from the crime scene. Inside the vehicle, forensic teams found traces of Jaden's blood and a knife used in the attack. But more importantly, they recovered a pair of yellow rubber gloves that had DNA belonging to one of the suspects. The DNA evidence led police to Ayub Magdalene, a 19-year-old gang member linked to the Marley Boys. Further phone records and CCTV footage placed him near the crime scene before and after the murder. He was arrested on June 22, 2019, more than 5 months after the attack. Although Ayub was charged with Jaden's murder, the other 4 attackers were never identified. The police continued their investigation, but no further arrests were made. The case was now heading to trial, where the full details of why Jaden was targeted and how the attack was planned would come to light. After his arrest on June 22, 2019, Ayub was charged with the murder of Jaden Moodie. The case went to trial at the Old Bailey in November 2019, where prosecutors laid out the evidence that linked Ayub to the attack. The court heard that Ayub was a key member of the Marley Boys, a violent gang operating in East London. Prosecutors argued that Jaden was targeted because of his suspected ties to the rival Beaumont crew, and his murder was a planned execution as part of an ongoing gang war. CCTV footage was played in court, showing the black Mercedes ramming Jordan off his moped. The footage then showed Ayub wearing a hooded coat, stabbing Jaden 9 times in just 7 seconds, before fleeing with the other attackers. The prosecutors described the attack as a cold-blooded, premeditated killing. Forensic evidence played a crucial role in the case. Ayub's DNA was found on a pair of yellow gloves recovered from the abandoned Mercedes, proving Ayub's direct involvement in the attack. Also placed him near the crime scene, before and after the murder. Despite the overwhelming evidence, Ayub denied any involvement in Jaden Moodie's murder. He told the court that he had been groomed into gang activity from a young age and was living in supported housing after escaping county lines drug dealing. He claimed he was acting under pressure from older gang members and had no choice but to follow orders. However, prosecutors argued that Ayub willingly participated in the attack, and the forensic evidence proved his direct involvement. The jury rejected his defense, concluding that he was an active and willing participant in the brutal execution of Jaden Moodie. On December 11, 2019, Ayub Magdalene was found guilty of Jaden Moodie's murder. The judge described the crime as a senseless and brutal killing of a defenseless child. Ayub was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 21 years. The 4 other attackers were never identified, and the case remains partially unsolved. Despite the conviction, Jaden's family was left knowing that several individuals involved in his murder were still free. Do you think justice was truly served in this case? Or were there still unanswered questions? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Jaden Moodie's murder was not just another statistic in London's rising knife crime crisis. It was a wake-up call, A 14-year-old boy deliberately targeted and brutally killed highlighted the dangerous realities of gang culture and youth violence in the UK. Jaden's case raised many difficult questions. How did such a young boy become involved in a gang dispute? Why wasn't he protected? And what more could have been done to prevent his death? His story is a tragic example of how gangs exploit vulnerable children, luring them in with false promises of money and security, only to place them in extreme danger. Despite the conviction of Ayub, the 4 other attackers were never brought to justice. For Jaden's family, this remains an open wound. His mother, Juliana Moodie, continues to fight for stricter gang prevention measures and better protection for at-risk youth. She has urged the government to do more to stop the grooming and exploitation of children by violent gangs. Thank you guys for tuning into another episode of Crime Lab. Take care. Don't forget to subscribe. It's totally free and it keeps you up to date with all of my future videos. Stay safe, and I'll catch you in the next one.